So it's around 10 o'clock. I just woke up and I've all but ruled out the show tonight. Despite the fact that I would like to go. There's not that much snow out there, as you can see. Although you can perhaps notice that it actually looks like winter outside for once. All that bright sun, that's winter. And that glistening, you see how the snow looks harder? That's actual winter snow. Although, I mean, as you can see, there's a very, very small amount of it. That in itself is not a reason to stay in. Nor is the cold exactly. It's not that bad, really. It's only, like, the high today is -7. The wind overnight's going to be freezing. But, I'm a Canadian, I can deal with that. What's worse is that this is probably going to be an overnight show, which means that I'll have to go to Ferndale, watch the show. It'll be done at 1 o'clock or something, and then I'll need to hang out in a coffee shop for 5 or 6 hours, and then come home. We did that with the Skinny Puppy show, where it was moderately warm out, or at least not freezing cold. I did feel it. I remember my feet were frozen, and we might have done that for the Pinkish Black show, although it didn't end up happening because it was done early. This is a show where that's going to happen, no question. Well, there's 3 bands on the bill. There's a possibility it could be done by midnight, and then I could maybe catch the bus home. But I mean, it looks like probably about a 70% chance I'd have to stay the night. So if I was going, I would plan to stay the night, which means I would be planning to buy a pack of cigarettes, and I'm not comfortable with that right now. I don't feel that. Well, I mean, I've quit for over a month now, but I don't feel better. I'm still tired. I'm still groggy. My throat still gross. I'm still, I still have a lot of phlegm in my throat, so I haven't experienced any of the health benefits of quitting smoking at this point. And well, the truth is I was healthy. Maybe when I do, it's going to be fairly minimal, anyways. And maybe the truth is that a lot of the things that we associate with smoking are due to things like bad diet, being overweight, diabetes. These are things that are correlated with smoking, but are perhaps causally complicated. And certainly one doesn't. When one gets cancer, they know they have cancer, right? I mean, with the heart disease thing, you meet lots of smokers with heart disease, where you see pictures of them, and it's funny how they're all obese. Can you find me an example of an average weight or underweight smoker with heart disease? It's a little bit harder. Although you can find lots with cancer. That's the thing that would get me. Again, you'll find smokers with diabetes, but it's funny that they all have large amounts of weight on them. So I mean, all these kinds of things, right? So I don't really feel like I feel better yet, and so for me to go out there and be like, I'm gonna do the buy a pack of cigarettes to stay awake all night thing. I don't have faith in myself to be able to come back and be like, okay, that's it. By this time next month, when I go see Tortoise, that might change. And Tortoise is in a place in Detroit that I have never been to. From what I can see, is a 3-bus 2-hour ride. It's a long ride, complicated ride. I hope I get there on time, kind of thing. Um, that's going to be something else that I mean, and I'll have to take that jump there. But for tonight, I don't really feel I can tempt this properly. Um, so the combination of things just kind of tell me that it's better if I just stay in. So, that said, I often tend to go through these sort of spasms before I go. How much did I get done last night? Well, we talked about this. I got up till the end of, the beginning of May. I've got a few hours before I need to really start thinking about it. If 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock comes around and I'm like halfway through 2015, I don't think that'll happen. And I really feel like, okay, I need to go out. If the temperature comes up more than I expected, all these sorts of things, I may decide I need to get some air and go out. But right now it's looking very unlikely. I'm planning to stay in for the day. I'm going to check my email and stuff, and then I'm going to make some eggs. Today's a good day to use the stove because it is cold out. And I'll start working from there. So it seems like this over 3-hour video is just about done, so I can't see how this could be anything but my last comment on this film. It went through a few more stories, and it's kind of easier to see that my suspicions about this coming from a religious perspective are no doubt accurate. And it's funny, actually, because he states at the very beginning, the first thing he says at the beginning of the film is that he has no ideological inclinations. I think that that's not borne out by what I see in the film. When he gets to the Noah story, instead of talking about it or evidence for it or against it, he spends the time arguing that the Jewish version is more reliable than the Sumerian version. That section of this film is not, it doesn't have anything to do with the idea of ancient aliens. It's purely an argument for the superiority of the Jewish texts. Essentially, it's a hit job on the Sumerian texts. And the only real reason that one could come up with to put that into this film would be to suggest that the Jewish scriptures have a higher level of validity and credibility than the sources that are certainly at least very similar to them. So that kind of made that part clear. Sometimes, you don't need a lot of evidence to expose a lie. You just need, an admission in the proper place, and that's what that section really functioned as. It made it clear that this person is actually operating from a Judeo-Christian perspective, and that's what his aim here appears to be. After that, it's gone into what it's calling a Nephilim, quote-unquote, section. And it acknowledges that, there's stories all over the world about, beings coming down from the sky and having sex with humans. But rather than try to address that or talk about it, it just changes the topic and instead talks about the question of artificial insemination. And I have to give it a little bit of slack here because it's claiming to debunk a film, and the film, it was the film that made the argument, so it's approaching that, right? Although the reality is that artificial insemination or not artificial insemination, it doesn't really have anything to do with the fact, with the compelling part of this, which is that this is a tradition that exists across cultures that are very far apart, would have had minimal contact, um, some contact, no doubt, but minimal contact in the ancient world, um, and just the reality that it's very curious that they all have the same story. They all have the same story about the flood, and we do have enough, um, you know, uh, paleoclimatological records to conclude that that probably did happen. Um, this video focuses on the idea of there being 8 people on the Ark. I Again, as I pointed out before on the Flood Myth video, we don't really need to go looking for an Ark, and we don't really need to start worrying about how many people were on the Ark. We just need to recognize that, okay, there's this story about a huge flood, and look, there's all this evidence that suggests that a huge flood happened. Put it together, maybe that has something to do with one another. And similarly with this story, you don't really need to start talking about, did the aliens have sex with the humans? It's very hard to see how it is that they could have produced offspring. I mean, we're not even talking about. What is the common ancestor between humans and aliens? What basis would you have to conclude um, any means of actually reproducing? What basis would you have to even conclude that sexual um, uh, relations were even possible? Okay, but it's the idea that seems, um, you know, uh, stable across all these cultures of something coming down from the sky and taking interest in the fertile half of our species, in some context or another. Um, Again, it, we need to we need to figure out the question of how they would have sex before we can answer the question of if they had sex. And I don't even think that we need to even contemplate the idea of there being offspring. But stories could easily develop up and build themselves up beyond that. The documentary doesn't go into that again. It just changes the topic and it wants to talk about whether the texts are consistent with the idea of artificial insemination. And they're talking about the story of Lamech. Maybe they'll bring up the story of Mary, and how she was impregnated by God soon enough. The Immaculate Conception. That's the idea that they're going around Immaculate Conceptions. Maybe they're talking about this instead, because the Mary story is a little bit too sacrilegious. I don't know. But it's this idea that they're going towards. Again, I can understand an Immaculate Conception as a meme, going back to Egyptian, and perhaps even earlier mythology. It's an idea of magic. That's not convincing to me one way or the other. What's interesting to me is just the story of beings coming from the sky, and how cross-referenced that is. Something else I want to point out, though, is that in this segment, they say that the fact that this story is in multiple different sources is a good reason to suggest that maybe there's something to it. Whereas, of course, I pointed out in the other section, they pointed out that the fact that the story was in all of these different places suggested that that was a reason you should not take it seriously. So, this is the kind of thing that they go after this film for all the time. You made one argument one way, and then you made another argument the other way. They're doing the same thing. That they're not providing consistency themselves. Again, I really haven't seen much of anything. I watched all 3 hours of this over, I don't know, it's been a week, something like that. And I didn't get a single really useful argument out of it. Or maybe if you want to go back and watch all the rambling I've done on it, if you can pull something out that I forgot, then great. But I don't. Right now I can't think of anything that I pulled out of this that's really very useful. And I'm kind of stepping away from this with the conclusion that this is a traditional Jewish or religious or Christian person of religious persuasion. Um, Perhaps they're even denying it to themselves. Um, I mean, one can be religious and not realize it, right? It's probably a lot more common than you would actually think. This idea of, you know, claiming. I saw the very end of that go out, so I'm pretty sure that the last thing I said was claiming to be a rational person, and you know, having your intellectual facilities overpower um, any kind of mythological feelings that you have, whether arrived at early or late in life, but ultimately not being able to let your critical reasoning overpower what it is that you're feeling. Or you know, it just being sort of like deep set inside of your psyche or something like that, right? And you know, whether it's actually that, or this is more of a conscious hit job is unclear. But it does seem to me that the person that made this video is unable to come to terms with these other ideas. I mean, like I said, the physical, the archaeological stuff, the architectural stuff was nonsense to begin with. It's the mythological aspect that's actually of interest, and of worth serious discussion. And from what I can see here, what I'm pulling out of this video is that this is somebody that would prefer to accept the faith of their texts, whether consciously or subconsciously, rather than the idea of speculating upon naturalistic explanations for them, or perhaps has even come to the conclusion that if these texts are to be taken seriously at all, then it should be in the traditional, religious mythological aspect rather than in a naturalistic context. I wish I got more out of this than that. Maybe something will come up in my watch later that actually ties some things together a little bit better. But it's just a bunch of straw men and a bunch of diversions. Sorry, that's all I got from that. So it's done, and there's just one thing that was mentioned near the end that bugs me, and I had to ask a question about. They had this professor on there who seemed most interested in directing traffic to his website. Mentioned it more than once. It's always funny, right? You get these people and they attack each other as shills that they're just making stuff up to sell money. But then it's interesting that their marketing is very in your face. But whatever. That's not to give any of the people that they're attacking extra credibility. Again, there's a lot of this that I just ignored completely just because it's nonsense debunking nonsense. I don't even want to get in between that exchange kind of thing. But something this guy mentioned was the idea of extraterrestrials being supernatural, and he wants to explain, the perspective of the perspective of extraterrestrials existing within a framework of a supernatural reality. It's just like total bullshit, right? If you want to explain to me what it is that you believe is supernatural about a distant species evolving from a different source on a different planet, getting into a spaceship that they built, and as I've said, they would have to be very long-lived, transiting from one part of the galaxy to another and interacting with us on the planet. That is no more supernatural than humans studying whales. It is no more supernatural than sending a rover to Mars. There is nothing um, outside of the realm of basic science in this hypothesis. In fact, its whole purpose is to act as a naturalistic explanation, and I've been over this in my past rants. I may be repeating myself because I haven't rewatched this, so I don't remember exactly what I said, but um, the whole point is that it's a naturalistic explanation for the supernatural ideas in the Bible. And taking any other perspective is just purely religious. You would have to be. For you to suggest that what's written in these texts is naturalistic, um, it's the idea of angels and gods that is supernatural. This is magic. This is make believe. Extraterrestrials are things that are concrete, living beings that evolved, like we did, um, and can have a naturalistic explanation, um, you know, through evolution, natural selection, the mastery of the world around them, the manipulation of physical laws. This is this is natural, and to have this discussion or any discussion like it, it is really fundamental that before the discussion can be had, that before there's any debate at all, that both sides have to agree that the idea of extraterrestrial life is a naturalistic idea, and it's a naturalistic explanation for phenomena. Because if you have people that are approaching it as though it's supernatural or magical, then they fail before the debate starts. I mean, they've already misunderstood the context before it's even been brought in, and that works on both sides of the argument, right? If you have people that want to talk about magic crystals or something, then we don't want to talk to them either. But those people are not any less outside of acceptable debate than people that want to throw away the whole concept of life off of our planet as the magical construction of Walt Disney or something. It's just they're both just well out of any sort of stable ground. You have to approach the idea of extraterrestrials entirely naturalistically and entirely probabilistically. I'm sure you've seen the numbers and the reality that it would be very unlikely if we're not inhabiting a universe with other species that are much more intelligent than we are. That's just so unlikely that it's really not even worth contemplating. So it's a little after 2 a.m. and I am stopping for the night. I got up until the beginning of July 2014, which is a little less than I wanted, but it's at least allowed me to provide some bounds and some goals. So I gotta do. I'm planning for 6 months a day kind of thing. I started a little bit later today, and I did procrastinate a little bit more than I wanted to. Meaning I could have got a little bit more done, but not a lot more. I would like to get 6 months done, I guess on Saturday. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, 6 months for Friday. 6 months for Saturday. 6 months for Sunday. And then I'll be done for Monday. So that's my plan with this. Um, Going through, I'm realizing that I lost a lot of content. I knew I had lost a little bit, but I didn't realize it was so much. And it's more frustrating. It's the content that I lost. Some of it was stuff I really wanted to keep. Like there was a discussion on a lot dispute video about language, and I enjoyed that discussion. And it's really unfortunate that it's gone. Um, I should explain a little bit about this, because I want to keep it, down somewhere. When Google and YouTube integrated their platforms, or when Google integrated Google Plus and YouTube together, um, they set it up so that whenever you posted to YouTube, you would also post to Google. And whenever you posted to Google, you would also post to YouTube. So, you post one or the other. Um, so I mean, everything was cross-linked, right? And I really liked that. That's the reason I started posting a lot there, was because now I had a feed. I had a listing of all the posts that I made on YouTube, which turned it into a site that I could use for that purpose. Before that, there wasn't a way I could make that. When you posted to YouTube, it was all just chaotic. There was no record of it. Of course, you could turn that off if you didn't like it, so it's not like they were forcing anything on anyone. But just having that page allowed me to exist in that role of a sort of, quote-unquote public intellectual. If you want to accept the term without the connotation. It was something that could be recorded, and read again in the future. And something I was a little bit worried about was, I know that, videos come up and down, but I noticed that when a video was deleted on YouTube, the comments remained on Google+. So it didn't matter. I could just do whatever comments I wanted, wherever I wanted, and, knowing that all of the comments were safe in the Google+ system. Around August of last year, which I guess it was about 6 months ago now. You see, I was occupied doing this and that, but a big part of it was that I was waiting for it to fix itself. I couldn't believe that Google would make this change without allowing for a new feed option. It was just in the process of coming up. And when it did, everything would work itself out. So I was just kind of waiting for that. But they separated the products out. It was really with no warning, or at least I don't remember getting a warning. It just happened. And that in itself was kind of whatever. But what happened when they did that was we lost. All of the archived posts and comments on the deleted videos disappeared into a black hole. So, for example, there was a discussion about language on a lot of dispute video. The video came down quite a while ago, and I could still access that discussion on my Google Plus profile, so it was there if I wanted to save it sometime in the future, or just leave it there. But when they separated the products, that discussion was replaced with a link that says, reply on YouTube. But you can't reply on YouTube because the video's been deleted. So all you get is a 404, and the result is that entire conversation disappears. And that's really upsetting. Because, like I say, I'm not talking about... I'm a heavy commenter. I do a lot of writing. And YouTube was where I was doing most of my writing at the time. And so I've lost, dozens of conversations, hundreds of pages of writing, in what is essentially a systems glitch that should never have happened. If you could imagine waking up one day and finding out that half of your Facebook profile is gone, or all of your tweets on a specific subject are deleted. It's really entirely unacceptable. And it's if I go through it, I think most of it is, most of the videos that were deleted on copyright notices. So most of the content that disappeared is not like I'm posting some pretty edgy political stuff, at Al Jazeera or RT or whatever else. That stuff's all still there. So I'm not getting attacked on a political basis. It's just everything that went down on a copyright notice is just evaporated. It's not. It's like I'm not claiming censorship or anything. It's just like a really bad programming decision that wiped out a lot of content. And ultimately, the issue is that, obviously, I'm inferring, but it's obvious that, YouTube is not looking at comments as content, right? They're taking the annoying perspective that comments are, for I get the idea that YouTube would like to turn the comments off and just not deal with them. It's just throwaway, pointless, worthless rabble. If it's of any value, it's in like feedback for the product or some other business fascist perspective, right? Rather than the idea that this is a means of communication. This is a way for people to talk to each other, to have discussions. For a lot of people, it's the entire purpose of the platform. I would not be interested in YouTube at all if it weren't for the comment section. It's really the only thing that I really use. I don't care about somebody's video about video games or somebody's boring vlog. What I care about is the discussions that are occurring there. And I would be more likely to use a different music providing service if it wasn't for the lively discussions and openness of the YouTube comment section that makes everything worthwhile there. So, on top of that, I got this all the time. People telling me that, your comments are interesting. Thank you for making this a better place. And then I wake up one day and half of my content's gone. It's really indicative of a level of incompetence on the Google side of things. And like I say, I'm really not at all suspicious of any political motives. I don't think anything got shut down. I don't think this is some kind of a conspiracy. I just think the programmers fucked up really, really badly in just not even thinking about this. It's just something that nobody considered. It just went right over their heads. And the conclusion that I'm coming to is that this is not a safe place to comment. So, beyond clearing the profile out and reusing it, I'm swearing off comments altogether on YouTube. I'm going to set up my own vlogging space with an RSS feed, and I'll do all my comments there. I'll see what I can do about setting up a forum, because I can't trust YouTube to provide stable content any longer. We're going to have to find another way around that. Setting up a blog with an RSS feed is pretty simple. That's easy. A harder part of it is going to find ways to allow you as a person to comment on my comments if you wish to follow my feed. And to find a way to reintegrate the kind of random aspect. Because that's the great thing about YouTube and commenting on YouTube is it's just random, right? As strangers. But on top of that, I've noticed that you don't there's not as much interaction as there was a few years ago. And the reason is because they separated it, right? So they had this integrated system, but then they broke it apart, and what it once was is no more, kind of thing. So I don't know. I know that I don't see any point in commenting on a system where, I mean, before I was pretty sure that my commenting was safe. I wouldn't have made so many comments if I wasn't pretty sure that it was safe or didn't feel like it was safe. Now, the way that the system runs currently is it's clear that every comment will be deleted eventually, because every video will eventually come down. So, I've gone from what seemed like a certainty of safeness to a certainty of volatility. And whatever I end up doing, it's clear to me that there's absolutely no point in commenting on YouTube, because all of the comments will be deleted. Any conversation you have there will be temporary. By its nature, it will eventually disappear, and I'm not interested in doing that. The whole point of having a written record of something is that it's permanent, so that people, 100 years from now can read it. And if you don't want that, then don't comment on my videos. Don't comment on my things, because I can guarantee you that information will be stored if I can store it. Unless somebody gets there before me and gets rid of it. If I can make a note of it, I will, because I'm all about that. So, I mean, it's like I say, I didn't use the comment system at Google for a long time, or sorry, on YouTube for a long time, and I didn't use them because I wanted a record. I wanted a feed somewhere where people could go and subscribe and follow my comments. And then they created it so that it did. And so I said, great, and I started using it. And now it's gone. In fact, not only is it gone, but a lot of what I had created is gone, too. So it's like a double whammy. And the whole process, the whole system has become volatile and useless. So I'm out of that system. I'm going to keep vlogging. My Ultra Reality is still coming up. What I'm going to use this doesn't really affect what I wanted to use the site for, which is essentially as a way to incrementally put up samples. But the days of Death to Koalas commenting on YouTube are over. And if you want to point fingers, the real culprit here. I'm pulling up because I noticed that my hits went down, but my hits went down because of the changes in the system. And as I'm going through and really taking a good look, I'm realizing that the damage of what Google has done to the Google Plus YouTube integration is far deeper than I thought. And the reason I'm pulling out, it's Google. Google fucked this up. Sorry. But Google has modified their system so that this is not attractive to me any longer, and I will no longer be using it. For right now, I'm going to sleep. Like I say, I'm hoping I can get 6 months done a day and have everything cleared off by Monday.